Valparaiso. And it's a long detour around that via 231, I-65, and 30. Work gets underway later this morning on Michigan Avenue between Ida B. Wells and Monroe. It's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast from the 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning Weather Center. Sunshine this morning, brilliant sunshine, but it will give way to clouds in the forecast. Breezy this afternoon, high of 62. 37 officially at O'Hare. Next news at 7 with breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The protests against lockdown policies are happening all over the country this weekend. Washington State, 2,500 people. San Diego area protest over the closures of beaches and walking trails. Phoenix.
Phoenix, and we had one in Springfield yesterday, too.
That's right, and there's another couple coming up May 1, one in Chicago at the Thompson Center, one in Springfield again. We're waiting to hear what Governor Pritzker is going to do with respect to any extension of the shelter-in-place order. The consent of the governed. The consent of the governed. You need that for legitimacy. It's starting to fracture for politicians that want to maintain a draconian hold on their constituents. And one of the other things that is tiresome, and I think, frankly, this is one of the reasons why people are starting to lose their patience, one of the really ugly consequences of these policies, the snitch culture. Rather than, working in solidarity with your neighbor, your law-abiding neighbor I'm talking about, you have politicians encouraging people to snitch on one another.
Yeah, and doesn't de Blasio set up a hotline for snitches?
Well, he's late to the dance. Kentucky did it a couple of weeks ago, as we discussed. You've had any number of incidents of people government encouraging people to act as sentinels of the state. Bad precedent to set. And Bill de Blasio was explaining the particulars of just how you can snitch.
Oh, yeah, he walked you through it.
On your neighbor.
New Yorkers, you have been extraordinary at social distancing. And let me tell you, it has taken every fiber of our beings to figure out how to do this because we're warm, emotional people. We're used to being close to each other. We're used to being packed into subway cars, and we've had to do the exact opposite and figure out how to keep distance. It's not natural for us. It's not normal for us, but you've done it. You've done an amazing job. Now, look, thank you, everyone who's done it the right way, but we still know there's some people who need to get the message. And that means sometimes making sure the enforcement is there to educate people and make clear we got to have social distancing. So now it is easier than ever when you see a crowd, when you see a line that's not distanced, when you see a supermarket that's too crowded, anything, you can report it right away so we can get help there to fix the problem. And now it's as simple as taking a photo. All you got to do is take the photo and put the location with it, and bang, send a photo like this, and we will make sure that enforcement comes right away. Text the photo to 311-692, and action will ensue. Enforcement will come to get the help we need.
That's great. You just text a photo to de Blasio, and he dispatches Beria, the head of the secret police in New York City, to come have a conversation with you and your family. Put that picture in your permanent file. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Kim Cole. He is the sheriff of Mason County, Michigan. He is one of the 4 sheriffs, at least that's what we've seen so far, 4 county sheriffs in Michigan, who sent a note, posted a letter, saying they are not going to enforce the strictures of Governor Whitmer's much discussed executive order that bans private gatherings and and all the rest of it, that they're going to make judgments as law enforcement officers on a case-by-case basis. They're not just going to follow orders as it goes. Sheriff Cole, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Morning.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And so you and your colleagues, fellow county sheriffs, what was the impetus for you all to say, and make public, look, we're going to use our judgment as law enforcement officers. We're not going to be knocking down doors to make sure families are social distancing and the neighbors aren't over.
So this all started probably last fall. Virginia's passed those gun regulations, and a lot of people across America, 100,000 plus in Michigan, raised eyebrows to Virginia and said, what is going on? And then overnight, it seemed like a Second Amendment movement started here in Michigan, and they were well organized. And there are 83 Second Amendment sanctuary movements going on, one in each county throughout the state, one such in my county. So I met with the organizer of our local Second Amendment group. We met for breakfast, and he was explaining some things to me, and he's sitting there at a restaurant, sitting across the table from me, having a cup of coffee, and his name's Herb. I said, Herb, can I ask you why you're doing this? And I was mainly trying to encourage him to, follow the rules. Don't go out and get in people's faces. Don't show up at commissioners' homes and, knocking on their doors and confronting them in public places. And Herb was looking down at his cup of coffee with his hat on. I couldn't see his face. He looks up, and he's got tears in his eyes. And he says, Sheriff, a baker in Colorado ought to be able to make a cake for whoever he wants. The state shouldn't be allowed to step into his bakery and order him to make a cake that's against his religious beliefs. He goes, I fought for the greatest military in the world, the United States military, for a person's individual rights, and that's not what I fought for. And I'm like, wow, this goes way deeper than just some people that want to keep their guns, and it's a chance for them to send a short message. These guys are in it for the long haul. So I said, Herb, just be careful. Do the right thing, be respectful of other people. And he said, you're welcome to come to any of our meetings. Matter of fact, we're having a meeting this week. Here's the date and time. Come on out. So I went. And there was a room full of fellas, ladies and fellas, and they were all just hardworking, middle-class people. They were tow truck drivers. They were meat cutters. They were linemen for the power company. They were deer hunters. They were fishermen. They were military veterans. And they were like, we have been pushed, our rights have been infringed upon enough, and we're not going to take it anymore. And I'm like, okay. So then, Lansing started having some legislative discussions about some stricter gun laws that really weren't going to go anywhere because we are a conservative state on the state level, but only by 4 or 5 in the House and maybe a half a dozen or less in the Senate. So those measures weren't going to go anywhere. Like they wanted to eliminate open carry in Michigan, and if you were part of a militia, you had to register with your name with your local sheriff or the state police. And those measures weren't going to go anywhere, but a lot of people didn't understand that. So the ground started to shake, And then the virus hit. And the virus isn't anybody's fault, but the virus hits, and the governor says, we need to do things. We need to stay home. We need to distance, and all these CDC guidelines, and it was all good stuff. And everybody was on board. And the initial order for stay home, stay safe was 14 days, and that was good stuff, right? And then after about day 9, the governor says, we might have to extend it out 70 days, the emergency declaration. But she didn't say, and I don't think she meant, that means you have to stay in your homes for 70 days, but that's all people heard. And then people started getting worked up. And then the stay-home order comes down, and it's like she did the second wave, which was really restrictive. That was where you couldn't have anybody who doesn't reside in your household over. You couldn't walk across the street to your in-laws and play pinochle on a Friday night. You couldn't have your kids over for Easter dinner. And then people really got fired up. And I don't think those who are elected to service on a state level really realize It's the uniformed policemen and women that are standing in that gap facing the brunt of the backlash. And all people wanted to hear was that somebody is going to protect them. Somebody's going to stand up for them. I've gotten a lot of really good, kind responses, and I've gotten some not so kind responses. And I'm okay with even the not so kind responses because that's protected under the First Amendment. I just wish those critics would look three amendments further at the Fourth. That's what I'm trying to protect, is them on their private property.
Yeah.
I just think we're going in a bad way when police can walk on your property because you have too many cars in your driveway, according to a neighbor on your street. And it just seems silly to me.
So, Sheriff, if you see somebody fishing, if you see somebody gardening, what are you guys going to do?
Well, if you're gardening on your own property, you can do that. You can rake your leaves on your own property.
Oh,
But, for example, in my neighborhood, there's a 93-year-old widowed lady that lives 2 doors down from me. I can't legally, under the governor's orders, walk down and rake her yard. And what she relies on is lawn care to come to her house and clean her yard out in the spring, and every 2 weeks they go by and they mow her lawn. She loves her lawn. Well, lawn care has been determined non-essential, which I don't think, well, I know it wasn't the intent of the governor, but, they started with these essential, non-essential businesses. And that kind of rubbed some people right off the start because people were going, well, why am I getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work at 6 when I'm not essential?
Right.
Now, Speaker Chatfield here in Michigan, he's the House Speaker, he drafted a letter to the governor saying, let's start working on getting some areas open in the state, and let's start changing the verbiage from essential, non-essential to safe, not safe. Okay, so if I can go out and rake my yard and I can't pay a guy to come and rake my yard, is it really that unsafe? Let's use a little common sense. And that was the gist of our letter, was just common sense.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and I like the change from essential, non-essential, because that's one perspective. There are a lot of perspectives on who thinks they're essential, which is everybody. But safe versus non-safe, I like that. There's something else that Whitmer said that was troubling as she tripled down on the order that she instituted, and that was essentially, hey, look. What's the big deal about seeds and these other matter, the raking leaves, raking your neighbor's leaves who can't rake her leaves? We got snow coming. So,
Snow will take care of it.
So we don't need to worry about this for a few weeks because of the snow. It's a remarkable statement because she's essential. She doesn't understand, I don't think, that she's saying your constitutional rights really rise or fall with pragmatism. You don't need your constitutional rights when there's a weather system that prevents the full expression of them. And when the snow melts, then we'll have a conversation about whether or not you get your rights back.
Yeah. There's been some, that rally that they had in Lansing Wednesday. I don't think anybody expected that to be as big as it was. Okay, and the governor at her press conference that day said, well, because these guys came out and they weren't social distancing and several of them didn't have masks on, we may have to extend the stay-at-home order. Yeah. We may need to extend that out. And people stopped listening at that point. And she went on to say, we want to open the state up as quick as possible. But they stopped listening when she said we may have to extend it out because of the people that came to Lansing, because they touched gas tank nozzles on their way fueling their cars up, and they bought food at restaurant drive-thrus, and that just stirs the anger even more. And that's what us four sheriffs are really trying to get the word out. Look, we're going to protect you in our county when it comes to your constitutional rights. We're going to go to the calls, but understand there's collateral damage here. Okay. We have responded to 8 complaints involving executive order violations since the order's been out in our county. And we're a county of about 28,000 people. We have 15 deputies that work the roads. We take probably 6,000 reports a year. We're not a big area. But 8 complaints of potential violations of the governor's orders, okay, that's a fair amount. But in that same time, we've taken 19 domestic violence calls. We take maybe 25 a year.
Gosh.
And we've taken 19 in 3 weeks.
Oh, it breaks my heart.
There's something. There's something else here too. If I could just interrupt, I just want to
Sure,
go back
yeah,
to
yeah.
the essential, non-essential. So in Michigan, essential liquor, lottery, marijuana, abortion. So
Right.
if I'm designated as non-essential, and you're telling me those 4 industries are essential, that's going to rub me the wrong way too. And I wonder if you're getting a little bit of that feedback.
Yes. Yeah, we are. My wife is a infection control specialist and OSHA compliance coordinator for like 35 dental centers across Michigan, and they've been deemed non-essential. But they have like 10 or 11 centers open throughout the state for emergency dental procedure, all right? And so many people are scared over this virus, the hype of the virus. And it's bad. There's no doubt about it. It's bad. But several of the employees for these dental centers are saying, we might not want to come back to work. So they're looking at closing several of these centers. And these centers service fixed and low-income families. So what's going to happen, 8 months down the road when these dental centers, that's just one example. What happens when they can't open? Who's going to provide dental care to the people that were relying on these centers and that were doing it based on income? And that's one of the potential fallouts. And that's another thing. Yeah, you're right. People are saying, I can't buy tomato seeds, but I can go to the marijuana store and buy my dope. And,
So, Sheriff, when you got those 8 complaints, what did you guys do? Did you hand out any, citations or
No.
arrest anybody?
No,
What did you...
no, we wrote
Shoot
no
anybody?
tickets.
Anybody get shot?
No, but that's my big fear is they're going to go to a guy's house who's not fighting with his wife. He's not playing his music loud. He wasn't outside in his yard drunk. He was, but a neighbor called, you'd preface the start about, de Blasio encouraging people to rat out their neighbors. And that's a dangerous area to go because the people caught in the middle are the uniformed officers.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're going to have a uniformed officer go up on somebody's porch, then they're already agitated. They've been cooped up in their house. They lost their job. And they're not doing anything but having dinner with their kids who come over from across town, and now it's a problem.
And you're the bad guy. You're the representative of the state. So you're the, when as you said, you're caught in the middle. It's a great point.
Yeah, these guys are viewed as the muscle of the state of Michigan.
Right.
They're the enforcers,
Right.
But they're not, and that's what we want people to understand. Our guys aren't the bad guy, and we're going to work with folks. I got a really nice email this morning from a gal who was telling me that she's a waitress. Well, it's short, real quick. I got a lot of positive, good emails, and this comes from a girl named Carrie Elizabeth. She says, "Dear Sheriff, this has been a very hard month for many of us. I've been trying to be productive, trying to look for work, wishing my restaurant job would come back to me. I sit here waiting for some form of a check to come in. No payment protection, no unemployment, no stimulus check as of yet. It's been over a month with no income so far. But there's good news. Good people are coming out to speak out for us. You sure seem to be one of those good people. Thank you, Carrie." This is the voice of people all over northern Michigan, and sooner or later they're going to reach a tipping point. And they'll, I don't know. It seems to me that we're taking some measures that are necessary to a point, but there also has to be some room for work.
I wonder if we could take northern Michigan and everything south of I-80 in Illinois and make a new state with those 2 regions, and then we could never mind. Kim Cole, he is the sheriff of Mason County, Michigan. Sheriff Cole, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks for helping us get the message out.
Yeah, be safe out there. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs. Texas this week begins rolling back the Wuhan virus restrictions. President Trump's 2020 campaign rallies return. Restaurants say normal will be different. Those stories next.
The coronavirus is wreaking havoc here in the United States and across the globe. The stock market is plummeting. Sports leagues are